Hi there. I just want to share with you how I lost £1 million. So let me take you back to a very much younger version of myself. When I was 17, 18 years old, I didn't need a passport. You know why? Because I was too poor to go anywhere. The idea of coming somewhere like this would have been beyond my wildest dreams. So I took my first little baby, because where I come from, I wasn't born with any money. Lots of love, lots of education, but no money. So my first little baby step was actually quite controversial amongst my peer group at the time. When I was 17, 18 years old, I bought a flat in London. I paid £9,000 for it, and then a couple of years later I sold it for £32,000. So I just tripled the value of that flat in 2 years. The money that flat gave me was more than my wages. I wasn't earning that much. So, my property earned more than I did. And then I traded in that, I sold that flat, I bought a 2-bedroom house, really nice 2-bedroom house for about the same money. Sold that a couple of years after that for about 40, I think it was 42, I can't really remember, 40 odd thousand pounds. So not quite as spectacular a gain, but another £10,000. And I bought a bungalow. Now, and I can tell you exactly what I paid for that bungalow. I paid £78,000. And I sold it 42 weeks later for 120. So that bungalow made me £1,000 a week. Now, £1,000 a week is still quite a lot of money now, but I'm talking 35 years ago. Now, 35 years ago, £1,000 a week, Jesus, that was proper money. So the whole property thing was an easy game for me. I was just buying a house or a flat, living in it, and then selling it, a year later or whatever, for a lot more money. But by the time I sold that bungalow, I had such a large amount of money that I bought a house for me and the family to live in, because I was married by then, got married at 21. And I got my first investment property. So at the age of 23, I got my first investment property. Now that investment property was just a house. And this was so long ago that there was no such thing as an HMO, no such thing as a house multiple occupation. Now, just to check in with you, if you don't know what that is, that's where you don't rent out the entire property to a family. This is where you would rent out a room in the property, typically to one person. And that's a mega established market in the UK now, but it wasn't then. Back then, a third of a century ago, there was enough houses, so we didn't need to cram people into little boxes, because ultimately people wouldn't choose to live in a room if they could get exactly that same, for the same money they could get a whole flat or a whole house. So hope you're with me so far. Here is where it all started to go wrong, because not only I'd just done an HMO without even knowing that it was an HMO, because what I did was I did a joint venture as well. So my friend, who's still my friend today, bought 1/4 of the house, 4-bedroom house, and he was going to live in that 1 bedroom. The other 3 bedrooms, here was the deal, he would let them out for me, and then the rent would pay my mortgage and I would get a profit. But I did it all wrong, because what I was doing was I was paying my 3/4 of the mortgage. He was living in this 4-bedroom house on his own, which he quite liked. I would too, with me paying 3/4 of the mortgage. He had zero incentive to fill any of those rooms. And I'm not saying that he was doing this maliciously at all, he wasn't. But if the deal had been different, if I was doing it again now, my older self would say to my younger self, Paul, what you doing there is crazy, you shouldn't be doing that. He should be paying the whole mortgage, and then any rent he gets from the rooms, he can use to offset that mortgage, and then maybe something like the profit that you both make, because all we needed to do was fill 1 room to pay the mortgage, and the other 2 rooms would have been profit. So that would have been like 1 room each worth of profit. So if I turn it into today's money, my HMOs I've got now that I run professionally is maybe £100 a room per week in today's money. So what we both lost out on was maybe £400 a month each profit, and I was paying £400 of mortgage way back when that I shouldn't have been. Over the 2 years that we had that property, I'm going to give you a funny unit of measure now. I'm going to say that 2 years for 3 rooms is 6 room years. You all with me? So I had a room that could have been let out for 1 room for 6 years, or 3 rooms for 2 years, same thing. So if you measure it in room years and then say, well, how much of that 6 room years was it full for? It was full for 6 weeks. I had 1 lodger in there for 6 weeks. So for the rest of that 2 years, all the rooms were empty. So it should have been so easy, but I didn't have a power team. I didn't have a letting agent. I wasn't having my HMO professionally managed. I had no training, I had no education. So I didn't know that I was doing it all wrong because, I was 23. And as far as I was concerned, it was easy. You just buy a house, it goes up in value, then you sell it again. Enter the first recession. Take you back to the early 1990s now. We'd paid £125,000 for the house. So a couple of years later, I just agreed with him, no hard feelings, this isn't working out. It's costing me a fortune. Now, what I should have done was get it professionally managed. But no, the route I took was, well, it hasn't worked, let's just sell it. So how much extra money am I going to make this time? Because I've had a £125,000 house. I've had it for a couple of years, I'll just sell it. The house valued up at 115. And I had to swallow a £10,000 loss to sell a house that was costing me thousands of pounds a year. I'd done the right thing. I'd got investment property, but I screwed it up because I didn't know what I was doing. And I got scared and I ran away from property for the next 10 years. During that 10 years, I would have easily made £1 million. So by not being in property for that 10 years, I cost myself way more than £1 million. And I don't want you to make that same mistake. I want you to become wealthy wisely. Because I was trying to get wealthy by just thinking, hey, I've bought lots of houses, I don't need any training. So I just went and bought some investment property. I had no idea what I was doing. I screwed it up, completely screwed it up. So what cost me the mill was I was out of the game when I should have been in the game. Because that 10 years, the back end of the 1990s, property went boom. And I was sat on the sidelines licking my wounds. And I don't want you being in that same place. I want you making lots of money and not costing yourself £1 million over the next 10 years. Because I've just stopped here by the side of the railroad tracks. And I'm sure you know, the Americans got an expression. You want to make sure you're on the right side of the tracks. And I want to get you on the right side of the financial tracks. I don't want you struggling. Nobody was put on this planet to pay the bills and die. Subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you get notifications of all our new videos. The biggest mistake in property, let me tell you what it is right now. Not doing it. So we're over here on the right side of the tracks now. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you at the Six Figure Summit. Bye-bye for now.